Hi, welcome to the latest episode. We've got Ross Anderson, Murray Cod Australia's CEO, listed on the stock exchange under MCA. Murray Cod's premium brand is called Aquna. Ross talks us through their farming model, how it all came about, the opportunities ahead, and how driving the next phase of growth, including some significant appointments as announced in the quarterly. But we hope you enjoy. Cheers. Ross, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Simon.
Now, Murray Cod, obviously, how long have you been with the business for?
Since inception, before we listed it back in 2015.
2015, so 10-year anniversary of listing. How long has it been around for?
We listed 31st of January 2017.
Okay, gotcha.
And the business started with a bit of an experiment from a young man by the name of Matt Ryan, who was had a very diligent scientific mind. He got out of wheat farming. He wanted to get out of the commodity business, and he wanted to get into a business that had growing demand and shrinking supply. So he decided to go into aquaculture. And some of the chefs he'd spoken to said, well, why don't you produce Murray Cod? They're a beautiful fish, but we can never get any of them. So he started off with one pond of fish, and sort of through, partly by accident and partly through scientific due diligence, he ended up with this beautiful quality product that was relatively labour-free, or much more labour-free in a way of growing it than had ever been done before. I tasted the fish at a local restaurant in about 2015 and went straight out the next day to have a look at what he was doing, because I said to the chef, where'd you get this? He said, I got it off Matty Ryan out at Bilbal. So I've headed out to have a look, and I saw that this was a really high-quality product, very scalable, and in a marketplace that does have growing demand and shrinking supply. So we got together and we found a little gold explorer that had never found any gold.
Classic ASX play. Gold explorer becomes fish farmer.
And Timpetra Resources became Murray Cod Australia on the 31st of January 2017.
Nice.
And those investors really took a leap of faith, because we didn't have much more than one pond with fish in it, one with water in it, and a couple of more holes in the ground. And since then we went on a very big growth curve for the following few years, and our share price ramped up, and our growth went dramatically upwards. And then COVID came along, and when COVID arrived, we had by March of 2020, I think 39% of our sales were exports. They were all going by air freight into Michelin star restaurants in Europe, Japan and the US. And of course all the air freight stopped, all the restaurants closed, and we didn't sell a fish for a month. And we became very nervous, a little bit too conservative.
Reserved,
Didn't put enough small fish into the water, and because it's a 3-year time lag to grow a fish, we're only now coming back to the stage where we've got sufficient supply coming back through to.
So what, drilling into that, so you basically just didn't put any fish in the ponds because you were, why not?
It was a combination of three things. One was obviously capital was very hard to raise during COVID. If we put a lot of fish in the water, we'd have to feed them for a couple of years before we can sell them.
Chicken and egg,
So they would eat working capital. That was one reason. The second thing was that, or what else we did apart from selling, we took fingerlings, which normally we would grow out. We sold them to the government for restocking rivers and dams. So that gave us a bit of revenue. We also moved into the live fish trade, where local Chinese and Asian restaurants get live fish delivered to Sydney and Melbourne. But that took small fish away. And small fish being taken away then meant no big fish a couple of years later. And then we also pivoted into Coles and Woolworths.
So
the combination of those
get through it.
The combination of those three things put us in a situation where our biomass actually went down for nearly 3 years in a row.
And if we look at the market in terms of, obviously Murray Cod, you're the only commercial producer of Murray Cod, I'm assuming, in the world, because it's only produced in Murray.
We're the only one of any
Basin.
major scale. There are a few smaller guys around who produce varying product. We've named it Aquna to differentiate it from Murray Cod. Because our Murray Cod can be a beautiful tasting fish. If you've ever eaten Aquna, you'd know that. But it can also be quite a muddy fish if it's not produced properly. So we really wanted to differentiate it in the marketplace.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
We called it Aquna, which meant flowing waters in the local indigenous language, spelt with a Q to signify that as an aquaculture company, you could get a better tasting product than you'd get if you caught one in the wild.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of the market, when we look at something like salmon or, how does, you talk about, scaling, you talk about, prices increasing and whatnot. How does it sort of look, as, for instance, a salmon versus, for Akuna's end market in terms of, production and consumption?
The Tasmanian salmon growers do about 90,000 tonne a year. I think it was 89,000 tonne were the last records that I saw. But that's part of a 3.2 million tonne global industry. Big chunk of it is wild catch. A lot of it is farmed aquaculture. And if they try to charge too much for their fish, we can buy it from Argentina or from Chile or the Faroe Islands or Norway or somewhere else. It's the same with barramundi. We see barramundi, about 80% of the barramundi consumed in Australia comes from Vietnam, Thailand and Indonesia. Yeah, wow. And so barramundi, again, will always have price pressure on it. We're producing a product that has two great things in its favour. Firstly, it's a very high quality eating fish. The chefs have rated it up there. In Australia, they rate it sort of between coral trout and Patagonian toothfish. So that really puts us in good stead and good demand. And secondly, it's a product that not only does it not grow anywhere else in the world, it doesn't even grow anywhere else in Australia. It only lives in the Murray-Darling Basin. It's an endangered species, so there's no wild commercial fishing to compete with.
Yeah.
And we're effectively the only one growing it at any scale.
Yeah, I didn't realise the endangered piece. That's quite interesting.
So,
and in terms of vertical integration, how do we sort of look at that? Are you end-to-end or?
So we hatch.
Yep.
We hatch the fish. In fact, we're hatching them right now as we speak. We've got spawnings happening every day. And then we take them right through to grow out. So we can tell you the whole history of a fish, who its mother and father is, what it's been fed, how it's been treated from the day it's born until the day it hits your dinner
plate. It's all
plate.
that tracking. That's pretty cool.
Like, we can't tell you exactly which mother and father because there's a few of them in the pond.
There's a fair few,
but we know exactly which pond it was spawned from and where that tracks through.
And in terms of probably linked in with that, around risks, aquaculture's obviously littered with those. How do you sort of manage that, from a biosecurity perspective and the rest of it?
The land-based model makes an enormous difference. So if you look at aquaculture around the world, there's 120 million. There's 160 million tonnes of seafood consumed. It's the most widely consumed protein in the world by miles. Of that, 120 million tonnes of it is fish. 60 million tonnes of that fish is produced by aquaculture, and 85% of that aquaculture produced fish is grown in land-based systems.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
Now, in Australia, we tend to think of aquaculture growing fish as being sea cages, because that's all we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the Asians have done it land-based for thousands of years. It's by far the most long-lived and sustainable model. And you get much better control. So, if a random disease is floating through in the ocean current or jellyfish, or we're seeing the algal blooms in South Australia at the moment, we've got absolute control of the water quality that we have our fish in.
And that's just by having naturally different ponds?
Yeah, different ponds.
Yeah.
Small ponds, you can change the water quality in them relatively quickly. You can empty them out and flush them through. So you get an enormous control level in a land-based system that you just cannot get when you're out in the oceans or estuaries.
You were talking earlier just in terms of the market dynamics, the costs and whatnot. How much does it cost per kilo at the moment to produce?
Roughly, to get it out of the farm gate, it's about $10 a kilo.
Yep.
That'll come down as we move more to the free-range model and as we get more scale.
Yep.
And as technology comes in. So it won't be long before we'll be able to feed our fish by drones, for example. We did an experiment last week with that.
That's pretty crazy.
And processing technology gets better and better. A few years ago you had people everywhere filleting fish and chopping them and trimming them and bagging them.
A bit of automation and whatnot. Or?
Whereas now the robots sit there and the fish come in one end. There's whole round fish. The robots do everything to them and they go at the other end on pallets in boxes frozen. And there's two humans watching the whole process to make sure the robots are working.
I'm imagining
so those costs are going to come down dramatically as a result of.
I'm imagining that listing you weren't expecting to have robots and drones
Absolutely not.
managing the ponds.
No.
So $10, and that's to wholesalers. So you don't go direct to restaurants. Obviously, it's distributed.
Yeah, we only distribute to wholesalers.
Yep.
And the cost to get to the wholesaler can vary depending on where you are, where they are in the world, or what sort of product they want. Do they want a frozen product? Do they want a... So,
And what's the,
on top of farm gate, there's processing costs.
What's the terminology, like guts out?
Yeah, the salmon guys call it a hog.
Yeah.
Head on gutted.
Yeah.
So we tend to do head on guts in.
Yep.
Whole round, what they call whole round fish. If they're properly purged, that can produce a very high quality fish that lasts extremely well.
And so it's
low processing cost.
So $10 to wholesalers, and then
No, $10 for us.
$10. Sorry, $10, and then what
That's
you
the
sell,
cost. That's not the
and then
sale.
you sell to the wholesalers for what?
We
on
sell to
average?
the wholesalers anywhere from $24 to $27. 24 for small fish, 27 for the large.
And you've spoken in the past about expecting price increases in terms of realising. But you can just talk us through the sort of market dynamic in terms of, you talked about deep and cold, etc.
Yeah, particularly in our larger fish, which are prized by the high-end Western restaurants.
Yep.
If you looked at, Patagonian toothfish or turbot, Patagonian toothfish in the southern hemisphere, turbot or halibut or even Atlantic cod in the northern hemisphere, they all come from up near the poles or down near the poles, from the deep southern waters or the deep northern waters of the globe. They're deep, cold, rough waters. They're not easy to farm. They aren't farming those species at any level. They're all wild catch. And the quotas on those catches are dropping every year. So, for example, at the Barents Sea, which is shared by Norway and Russia, in 2013, their quota was 1 million tonnes a year of Atlantic cod. In the 26 year, it's going to be 260,000 tonnes. So,
drastic.
It's dropping dramatically. There was an article in the Telegraph of London the other week talking about how people cannot afford to buy turbot anymore.
Just because of supply and demand.
Just because of supply and demand.
Down.
Just breakdown, yeah.
It's pretty crazy. So what do you sort of expect, obviously not a forecast, but in terms of what you see as the price is going for Aquna, in the future? Is it 10-20% over the next 10 years, or is it?
Oh, it could be much more significant than that.
Yeah.
It's really a matter of us producing regular supply. So at the moment, here we are as a company sitting with 2,500 tonne of fish in stock, but we don't have enough larger fish to meet the market demand. So as we can get to the stage where we can guarantee supply and people become comfortable that we can do that, that's when we can look at pricing.
And when does that change?
That'll start to change dramatically this year.
Yep.
So this summer growing period, there's a lot of fish coming through into that larger 2.8, 3 kilo range.
I'm imagining managing a company that's sort of been handcuffed throughout COVID and then further handcuffed afterwards. It'd be pretty bloody frustrating.
Look, there's all sorts of issues in dealing with it. You're dealing with biological stock, and you've always got risk. You've always got different issues that pop up about how they grow and what you do. One of the things we've done, which is going to make an enormous... There's two things make an enormous difference in protein production throughout the history of the world. So whether it was chickens or pork or beef or whatever it was, those two things were feeding and breeding. From a feeding perspective, we were so small to begin with, we couldn't get our own diet. So we used to use barramundi pellets, fish feed designed for barramundi. Now we've got our own diet specifically for the cod, and we're continuing to improve that. And we're getting much faster growth rates than we were as a result of that. But the big one is the breeding. We've been working with CSIRO, where we've contracted them to undertake a breeding program for us. I think it's into its 4th year now. We've seen the fastest growing family lines grow 80% quicker than the slowest growing family lines. So over time, as we continue to work through that, we'll end up with a breed of Murray cod called Aquna. In effect, it'll be the Wagyu of fish. It'll have a higher fat content, a faster growth. And we'll be the only ones in the world who own that species, not a species, a breed. We'll be the only ones in the world who have those genetics. And that'll make an enormous difference when you come to pricing down the track as well.
And in terms of the sort of pond build out and developments there, what's the latest?
We completed the Stanbridge development on time and pretty much on budget. Those ponds the last of those ponds are being filled with fish right now as we talk.
And so does that then start the 2.5 year process?
Yes.
Yep. So you're going to have this phased
That's
sort
right.
of ramp up.
Yeah, phased ramp up.
Yeah.
We have a site at Gageldry, which we had originally earmarked for a hatchery, but because we've introduced technology which has improved our productivity at the hatchery so much, we can actually convert that development application into a grow-out site. So we can put ponds on that in the next year or so.
Yep.
And that'll continue that phased build-up. But for us, really, the last couple of years was about growing fish. The next couple of years is about selling them.
Which you've got the demand for, right?
Yeah, the demand exists globally. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. The large fish sell themselves really well, but having a species globally that people don't know, it's a real advantage in the high-end markets because those chefs want something different.
Yeah.
Going down to the second-level markets,
It's a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah, where it's more mainstream, people say, I don't know this species, so there's work to do.
And in terms of from a distributor, obviously not a distributor, how hard do they have to work in terms of educating the restaurants, and whether it's tasting or otherwise when you talk about that next level down?
Yeah, the real easy way is give people a taste.
Yeah.
Once they've tasted the product, they're comfortable with it and they want to use it.
It's not like a science experiment, right? That they need to see what the outcome is and the rest of it. You just a bit of a taste test.
Yep.
And in terms of the recently raised money, just talk us through the rationale there and what that does in terms of future. Yeah,
the rationale there was we obviously want to move into some high quality frozen product. So we've got a little bit of money to spend in setting up our processing there. We're looking at getting set for the next stage of Gageldry, and obviously maintaining a working capital buffer for the fish that are growing throughout in the next summer ahead of us.
So that de-risks in terms of, obviously the phases they're going to come on, and then cash flow should start to generate and pop back into the business.
That's right.
Yeah. And in terms of the fund, you've talked about that in the past. What's the latest with that?
Yeah, the Australian Sustainable Protein Fund owns some of our property. We've got a portfolio of about $70 million worth of property through the Riverina of land and water. We were considering, or we were actively looking at sale and leaseback opportunities using that vehicle last year. But while we were doing that, we actually ended up negotiating funding with Westpac. So we said we may as well pay similar rates as a property lease and still own the property, which is what we've done. So that's always an option for us to look at and gives us flexibility in funding.
And in terms of the quarterly, obviously that's just come out. When you talk about, we don't need to drill into the numbers, what are the sort of key takeaways that you think are important for investors to focus on now and more so into the future as well?
I think investors need to understand that we've got significant growth in our sales team and significant skill coming on board in terms of Catherine Breyer, who's internationally known in the aquaculture and seafood industries. She's coming on as head of sales and marketing, and that's going to be a huge...
How important is that in terms of reputation and validation?
It makes an enormous difference. I mean, she was head of marketing at Biomar, the biggest fish food company in the world. She was the leader in developing the New Zealand King Salmon brand of Kia Ora King Salmon in the US. She was the pioneer in doing that, and very successfully. I mean, when you go to the US, that brand is really, really well known and brings a significant premium. So to have her on board building the Aquna brand and the sales team, we've added to the sales team. We're continuing to do that. I think those aspects are something investors can take heart in. The fact that Woolworths are going from sort of 30 stores up to 134 stores this week is also...
That's probably Woolworths calling now, saying it's selling so well.
It was the processing plant manager, actually, who's worried about how he's going to deliver all the fish to Woolworths. Yeah.
Very good.
But, so Woolworths are ramping up. As we start to have fish available again.
Yep. And in terms of just going back to the head of sales appointment, I'm assuming she doesn't join 2 years ago, or when you're in the sort of dearth or the valley of trying to grow them and whatnot. The timing's right.
The timing's perfect. The product's coming through.
Yeah.
And she has the international and domestic connections to be able to make that work.
And in terms of, you've talked about different targets and scaling up and whatnot. What's the last sort of run rate in terms of production at this stage? If we look at it on a yearly.
Yeah, if you look at our productive capacity, it's about 4,000. They've always touted 4,000 tonne as a productive capacity.
Yep.
That's at 100% utilisation of ponds. So
which is probably not realistic.
Probably not realistic, but that's the capacity. We can just continue to add now with grow out. We've shown that we added 3,000 tonne of capacity with the Stanbridge site in the space of 18 months. So it's not that hard. We've built a lot of the infrastructure supporting the business over the last 7 or 8 years, and now it's going to look like sudden rapid growth in production.
Overnight success story.
Yeah, but it's not. It's that building of the infrastructure underneath it. So adding grow out now is not that much of a difficult task.
And if we look at say at 5,000 tonnes, or 4,000 tonnes, that you're fully producing, what does that look like from a revenue perspective?
Well, if you look at 4,000 tonne at $25 a kilo, it's $100 million a year.
And that's realistic over the next 5-10 years, I'm assuming.
Well, we should continue to grow from that.
Yeah, okay, so that's a marker, and then continue to scale from there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the volumes of high-end white-fleshed fish in the world. The salmon industry does, or salmon on pink-fleshed fish, salmon does 90,000 tonnes in Tasmania, but it's a 3.2 million tonne industry globally. Patagonian toothfish, beautiful eating fish, 22,000 tonne quota globally.
That's it.
So if we go from up towards 10,000 tonne, we're still going to be the rarest fine dining fish.
And so you're not going to, for that reason, it's always going to remain sort of basically luxury and niche. Right, because it's not going to be mass sold and available. Unless
something dramatic changes and we go to 100,000 tonne, I don't know. But
that'd be a good news story.
Yeah, that'd be a good news story. Yeah. But I mean, in the short term, our strategy is to keep it relatively niche.
And in terms of, I quite like this question. It's going to be a curveball for you. What would please you more in terms of hitting production of say 5,000 tonnes? Or saying share price, of a certain quota?
Look, for us, we know that long-term share growth comes from a high-quality business.
Yeah.
And if our share price, in equivalent terms, pre-COVID was at $4.80 a share. Now it's back down around $1.
Yeah.
So for us, it's really about people understanding the growth trajectory, understanding the quality of the business, and the quality of the earnings. We're not really that focused on short-term share price. We'd love to see a $5 share price, obviously. But for us, we know that wouldn't be sustainable if we didn't have a high-quality business. So for us, it's about building a business.
I'd take you as a person of wanting to achieve something that is fundamentally sustainable as opposed to an overnight sugar hit sort of thing.
Well, we're not here to cash it. Our investors aren't there to sit and cash out. We've created a new industry in Australia. Inland aquaculture didn't exist in Australia before this, and it's something that's going to produce. It's a get-rich-slow scheme.
I quite like that. And then in terms of you're the only ASX-listed aquaculture player left.
The only ASX-listed aquaculture producer left in Australia.
So there's a scarcity premium, hopefully there, and as you ramp up and the fish start to be eaten. So to speak.
Yeah. Well, the fish are certainly being eaten. It's just providing more
of them. Exactly. Yeah. Ross, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck for the future.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks.